Welcome to another episode of Board Progression. Today we are reviewing Sundance Resort here in Utah. Now, as a local with over 500 days riding and filming for you guys in the state, I'm reviewing every resort in the state of Utah. And I'm also going to be releasing a top 10 video of my favorite resorts in this state. Now, as a reminder, these reviews are based on my opinion, what I like, what I'm looking for in resorts, and do they cater towards my style of riding. That being said, I do love each and every resort here in Utah. There's no such thing as a bad resort. So if there's a review that goes higher or lower than you wanted, we're just splitting hairs here, okay? To review all these resorts, we're breaking things down into 7 categories, which I've mentioned in other videos, but we'll go through them again really quick. The first category is terrain and snow quality. The second category is length of season. The third category is lifts, amenities, and terrain accessibility. The fourth category is trail difficulty and variety. The fifth category is crowds and travel time. The sixth category is customer service. That has less to do with trying to get somebody on the phone if you have a complaint, and more so, how are they treating the community? And the final category, maybe the most important one, is the overall vibe of the resort. How do you feel after a day of riding, and how stoked are you to go back there? Before we jump into the categories scoring the review for Sundance, let me tell you a little bit more about the resort. Nestled in the beautiful Provo Canyon, Sundance rests beneath the majestic Mount Timpanogos, the second tallest peak in Utah. In 1941, the first slalom ski race took place on Mount Timpanogos Glacier. This sparked an interest in skiing in the area, and 3 years later, the Stewart family, who owned over 2,000 acres of ranch land, opened the Timp Haven ski area. The first tow rope installed, powered by a Chevy truck engine, was plagued with mechanical issues, yet it hauled skiers 500 feet up the mountain, with lift tickets costing a whopping $1 a day. 2 chairlifts were added in the 50s, and around the same time, a young Robert Redford was driving from California to Colorado to go to college, and he made a wrong turn in Provo Canyon accidentally. He immediately fell in love with the Timp Haven area and returned years later in 1961 to purchase 2 acres of land for $500. He built a home there for his family during his acting career, and by 1968 he gathered enough investors to help him purchase all of Timp Haven plus another 3,000 acres. This actually helped prevent a housing and condo development boom that was going on in Utah at the time, preserving the land around him that he loved. Eventually, Timp Haven was renamed to Sundance Resort after his role in the movie Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It's an excellent film, by the way. Over the next 50 years, Robert Redford turned Sundance into pretty much what it is today, with a focus on preserving nature, arts, and culture. He started the Sundance Institute for Independent Artists in 1981, and the first independent film festival was held at Sundance in 1985. The now famous Sundance Film Festival, currently held in Park City because it's gotten so big, is the largest independent film festival in the US. I wish I could say Redford still owns Sundance, but in December of 2020, he sold the resort to Broadreach Capital Partners and Cedar Capital Partners. The new owners have promised to honor Robert's legacy of nature preservation while upgrading existing amenities like chairlifts, adding additional parking, adding more snowmaking capabilities, and renovating existing buildings. Today, Sundance has over 450 acres of skiable terrain with 72 trails and 6 chairlifts. It has a peak elevation of 8,250 feet with 2,150 feet of vertical. They average about 300 inches of snowfall per year, and last year for the 22-23 season, they finished with 463 inches. Day passes range from about $130 to $150, depending on holidays or weekends, with night riding and twilight starting at $59. Sundance is not on Icon or Epic Pass, but if you buy a season pass at Sundance, you get some perks at partnering resorts, like 3 days at Brian Head, 3 days at Nordic Valley, and also at some other resorts outside of Utah. Now let's jump into the review categories, the first one being terrain and snow quality, and we're giving them a 6 out of 10. Now, Sundance's biggest weakness is its lower elevation. It being only around 8,000 peak elevation, its snow quality just doesn't hold up quite as well as it does in the Cottonwoods. The snow tends to be more wet and heavier, especially lower mountain, and it can kind of go through a nasty melt and freeze cycle if it gets warm during the day and cold at night. But on a storm day, or even maybe the day after a storm, the snow is excellent. Just a bit more dense lower mountain. Also, because of the lower elevation, there's really no terrain above tree line, so there's not any rocky chute areas or cliffs. Overall, it's not very steep, but there are some very steep sections that are a ton of fun. And frankly, there are some amazing, breathtaking views of Timpanogos and the surrounding mountains. But at the end of the day, there's only so much terrain you can see and experience at 540 acres. The next category is gonna be length of season, and we're gonna have to give them a 3 out of 10. Based on all the other resorts in Utah, their season is kind of more on the shorter end. This season, they opened on December 2nd, which is actually pretty decent considering our lack of snow, but they usually end their season quite early. And last season, with the record-breaking snowfall and all-time conditions, they scheduled their closing day for April 1st. Now, there was an outpouring on social media asking them to extend the season as many resorts did in Utah, and they only opened up again for 2 more days on April 7th and 8th. And then one more surprise on Mother's Day weekend, they reopened for 2 days, which was kind of nice. But still, there was a ton of time between April 1st and those 4 days that they reopened that they could have been open. The next category is lifts, amenities, and terrain accessibility, and we're giving them a 6 out of 10. They have 6 chairlifts, but only one of them is a high-speed detachable. That's the Outlaw Express, which they upgraded a couple years ago. At the very end of the old Outlaw lift, it used to go slightly downhill to get you to the base of Upper Mountain, but now instead they've installed a tiny lift called Stairway, which gets you back to Lower Mountain from Upper Mountain. So really only 5 of their chairlifts actually get you access to certain skiable zones on the mountain. And outside of Outlaw Express, the rest of the lifts are pretty slow, but I will say pretty much all of Sundance's terrain is easily accessible from the lifts. During my time at Sundance, I've only done one very small, very short hike to get to some terrain that was only accessible from a boot pack, and there's very minimal traversing, even for snowboarders. The amenities are quite adequate, especially the lodge at the base, which is rustic and charming and has excellent food, but I will say it's a little disappointing at the very top of Red Summit. You're pretty far away from the lodge, and you would expect there to be something up there that you can grab a bite to eat at, like a grill. There's spectacular views to hang out at, but there's a shack there that's basically just for ski patrol and maybe first aid if you need it. Before we continue, I want to thank all the Patreon members out there and the subscribers. If you guys want to help me continue to make these videos, please hit the subscribe button. It helps me out more than you know. And if you really want to help out, please consider contributing to the Patreon. You can contribute as much or as little as you like. Another way you can help out is by picking up a pair of VO gloves. We got brand new VO gloves in stock on the website. If you enter promo code board progression at checkout, you'll get 15% off of your gloves. And another way you can help out is by repping some board progression merch or stickers. As always, Patreon members get 15% off all board progression merchandise and stickers. Thank you guys for your help. The next category is going to be trail variety and difficulty, and we are landing on a 6.5 out of 10 for them. Now, it is a smaller resort, so it's kind of limited with the variety, but overall it's pretty diverse, I'd say. The Upper Mountain definitely has a distinctive feel different from the Lower Mountain. Bishop's Bowl at the top, which they say is Robert Redford's favorite area on the mountain, is a wide open area that you can rip through, especially on a powder day. And then on the other side of Red's Lift, you got some really sweet aspens to cut through. And then Lower Mountain has a lot of twists and turns and a lot more heavily wooded areas. There's not many steeps at Sundance, but there are some zones that are steep and they're quite fun, honestly. Wonder Boy and Vertigo are 2 of my favorites. You have to traverse to get out there just a little bit, but it's pretty easy to traverse even on a snowboard. Unfortunately, there aren't really any natural cliffs or a ton of drops or chutes to ride, but there are some awesome side hits and amazing cat tracks to launch off of. Sundance does have terrain parks, and I usually count that as a positive, but they're kind of mediocre, I'd say. It's cool that they have a beginner/progression park, and then they have a more intermediate advanced park, but every time I've been there, they haven't been manicured all that well and not very creatively designed. I think the biggest thing holding Sundance back in this category is its size. When it's this small, you can't really have that much variety and difficulty in the terrain, but I will say it rides bigger than it actually is. For example, Brian Head has 650 acres of skiable terrain, which is more than Sundance, yet it feels like a smaller resort to me than Sundance does because Sundance is so different top to bottom. Check out my Brian Head review video if you want to hear more about that resort, by the way. The next category is everybody's favorite, crowds and travel time. Guess what? We're giving Sundance a 9 out of 10. If you're driving from the center of Salt Lake to Sundance, it takes about 40 minutes without traffic, and you're really only gonna hit traffic if you're driving during rush hour. The drive from Salt Lake down to Provo is pretty easy, and once you get into Provo Canyon, it's really scenic, but the last stretch I've heard can be kind of treacherous if it's snowing, so you definitely wanna have chains or snow tires if you're driving up there. But if you're going there on a Saturday and you don't wanna drive that last stretch of road yourself, they've added a park and ride shuttle that picks you up from Glen Canyon Park every 30 minutes and then also leaves from Sundance Resort to go back to that park every 30 minutes. And that shuttle's complimentary, first come, first serve. I'd also say Sundance is one of the least crowded resorts in Utah. Every time I've been there, I've been able to get away from crowds. I'd say the only congested area is at the base of Outlaw. And to me, there's only one other resort that comes to mind in Utah that's maybe less crowded than Sundance. Okay guys, we're almost done. The next category is customer service, and we're gonna give them a 7.5 out of 10. I think their social media presence could be a little bit better. It seems like they don't respond very much to comments, and there was a lot of demand last year for them to extend the season, and they basically only added 4 more days. The new CEO does show his face on social media talking to the community, which is nice every once in a while. And it does seem like they're trying to upgrade the resort without compromising Robert Redford's legacy of conservation. Lift ticket prices and season passes, I'd say, are pretty reasonable, and they haven't sold out to a mega pass. As far as parking goes, they do have free parking available Monday through Thursday in the upper lots. If you want to park in the lower lot closer closer to the lodge, that's gonna be paid parking. And on the weekend, that free parking turns into $10 per car unless you have 4 people in your car, and then it's still gonna be free in the upper lodge. One last thing about this category is I'll say that I had them at an 8 out of 10 and I had to bump them down to a 7.5 out of 10 because of their website. The navigation is overly complicated trying to find the information you're looking for. It's very difficult to find simple information like mountain statistics or the trail map. There's way too many menus and options to get to information from multiple sources in a not very clear way, and several times the website just crashed and was down for hours while I was trying to make this video. So if you're planning a trip to Sundance and you want to just look up some information or maybe buy tickets in advance, that's definitely an area where they can improve. All right, we made it to the final category, and that is the overall vibe of the resort. Sundance really impressed me here. It has a lot of charm, class, and character without being snobby or stuffy. It really strikes a nice balance between being a little bit classy but still being kind of rustic and having that cowboy ranch feel. It's super family friendly. It has an emphasis on arts and culture. They have a lot of performing arts there, especially in the summertime. There's a huge emphasis on nature preservation there. I'd say overall it just has this sense of peace and tranquility. There's definitely no powder panic there, which is awesome on a powder day. I'd say maybe the only thing that's just a little bit lacking in this category is energy. You know, people are just getting amped up on a powder day, hooting and hollering, you can hear all over the mountain. You don't hear that quite as much there, I'd say. But that's probably the flip side to the peace and tranquility. For all these reasons, we're giving them a 9 out of 10 for the vibe of the resort. Sundance really is a special place. All right, now it's time to add up all those categories for our final score. And we're gonna be giving Sundance a 47. Now in our ranking system, that gives them a 4 out of 5-star review. I think the only reason that they didn't get bumped up to a 5-star review is just their location. Their lower elevation doesn't quite hold snow as good as other places, and they don't have that rocky technical terrain that we kind of are looking for. I think that location also kind of hinders them from keeping snow for a long time and extending their season, thus bumping down their length of season a little bit as well. However, I love riding at Sundance. I love it for what it is. Let me know what you guys think of this review. Drop a comment down below if you agree or disagree. Definitely check out my other resort reviews. I hope you guys are progressing in anything and everything that you're doing. I love you all. We'll see you real soon. Bye.